Alright, let's get in. Number 10, Ningen. The Ningen is a massive humanoid creature reported in the icy waters around Antarctica and Japan. And this thing looks like someone tried to draw a human from memory after not seeing one for a decade. It's described as a pure white body stretching up to 98 feet long with a vaguely human shape but no face, no mouth, no expression, just smooth, pale skin and long limbs that move through the water like they're searching for something. The first stories came out of Japan in the 2000s when fishermen claimed they saw these beings swimming beneath the ice. But here's where it gets interesting. In 2010, Japanese whale researchers released what they called the most convincing Ningen video ever recorded. The footage came from the Japanese Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology. It filmed in Arctic waters, and it clearly shows a large creature with rounded features, an ominous smile, and two large glowing white eyes staring back at the camera. Marine biologists examined the footage and said, no known species of whale looks like this. What makes the Ningen so disturbing isn't just its appearance, it's the total lack of proof beyond these sightings and that one piece of footage. No bodies, no DNA, no clear photographs. But that's exactly what makes it compelling. It's said to appear in Antarctic waters, one of the most unexplored regions on the planet, where entire ecosystems could exist without us ever knowing. Some people think the Ningen is just a misidentified whale, but those explanations fall apart when you look at the 2010 footage and see those eyes, those limbs, that shape that doesn't belong to anything we've catalogued. Number 9, Megalodon. If you thought faceless humanoids were unsettling, this creature actually existed, and it makes modern sharks look like guppies. The Megalodon was a prehistoric shark that ruled the oceans from 23 million years ago until about 3.6 million years ago. And this thing could reach lengths of 50 to 60 feet. Its teeth alone measured over 7 inches long, the size of an adult human hand, and generated a bite force estimated at 40,000 pounds per square inch. What did it hunt, you ask? Well, fossil evidence from every continent except Antarctica shows the Megalodon hunted whales, seals, giant sea turtles, and basically anything else it wanted. Paleontologists have discovered whale vertebrae with Megalodon bite marks, showing the shark specifically targeted vital organs and fins to immobilize prey before feeding. A 2008 study concluded the Megalodon used a strategy similar to modern great whites, but scaled up to hunt prey 10 times larger. Despite TikTok videos claiming Megalodon spotted off California coast, this creature is definitely extinct and has been for over 3 million years. You've probably seen conspiracy theories claiming it's still alive in the Mariana Trench, but here's what scientists actually say. If Megalodon still existed, we would find fresh teeth washing up on beaches, we would see massive bite marks on modern whales, and we would have sonar evidence by now. And we have none of those things. The Megalodon went extinct due to cooling ocean temperatures, competition from great white sharks and orcas, and whale migrations toward polar regions. A 2014 study concluded the species disappeared 3.6 million years ago. Thank goodness. Number 8, Titanoboa. Now, let's talk about a creature discovered so recently that some wonder if more are hiding. The Titanoboa lived around 60 million years ago, just after the dinosaurs went extinct, and this thing could grow up to 50 feet long and weigh over a ton. That's the length of a school bus. Except this school bus is a snake with muscles powerful enough to crush a crocodile's spine like a breadstick. Scientists believe it hunted large fish, turtles, and maybe even young crocodiles, crushing with enough strength to snap bones like twigs. The Titanoboa was only discovered in 2009 when its massive vertebrae were found in a coal mine in Colombia. Some of the vertebrae were as big as a human head. Today, you can see the Titanoboa's reconstructed skeleton at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. And standing next to it makes you realize just how fragile humans are. But here's where it connects to ancient mythology. For thousands of years, Hindu and Buddhist cultures worshipped the Naga, a serpent deity described as half human, half snake, sometimes with 5 or 7 heads. According to these stories, Nagas guarded rivers, springs, and treasures. Snake worship still exists today in India, particularly during the Nag Panchami festival, when people offer milk to cobras. What if ancient tribes found fossils of creatures like the Titanoboa, bones of snakes so large they couldn't possibly be real, and built entire mythologies around them? The Titanoboa lived 60 million years ago, but erosion can expose fossils at any time, and ancient people finding a vertebra the size of a human head would have no way to explain it except through myth. Number 7. Leviathan. Up next is a creature so powerful it appears in the Bible, and for thousands of years people thought it was mythology until scientists found bones. The Leviathan is described in ancient texts as a sea monster so strong that nothing could tame it. A creature with scales like armor and a body so massive it could create whirlpools. But here's something weird. People all over the world talked about huge sea monsters that sound almost identical, even though these cultures never met. That's not a coincidence. About 50 million years ago, a real sea snake named Paleophis ruled the oceans, and this thing was over 30 feet long. It lived in warm coastal waters, which means people could have found its bones washed up on beaches. But the Leviathan might not have been a snake at all. There was a giant whale called Leviathan that had teeth as long as your hand and hunted other whales. And some paleontologists believe it even fought the Megalodon and won. Scientists named it after the biblical Leviathan because they realized this creature was exactly the kind of monster that could inspire ancient myths. So, the Leviathan wasn't just a myth, it was inspired by real monsters that once ruled our oceans. Number 6. Umi-bozu. Now let's talk about a creature from Japanese folklore that still terrifies fishermen. Umi-bozu, which translates to sea monk, is a giant that appears when the storm suddenly stops. But the silence is far more terrifying than any storm. Japanese fishermen believe that if the sea goes still, if the wind dies and fog rolls across the water, Umi-bozu is near. He rises from the ocean, enormous, faceless, often just a massive shadow in the mist. Some say he has long grey arms, others say he's only a head, a smooth black dome the size of a ship's hull that rises silently and watches. Either way, he sinks ships with a single gesture. Legend says if a sailor speaks to him, Umi-bozu asks for a bucket, and if you hand him a normal bucket, he floods your ship slowly, calmly, until you sink beneath the waves. The only way to survive is to hand him a bottomless bucket, confusing him just long enough to escape. What does Umi-bozu look like, you ask? Well, folklore varies wildly. Some describe him as tall as a sail, a black pillar rising from the ocean with 2 glowing eyes. Others say he's as huge as a mountain, stretching so high that sailors can't see the top through the fog. No matter what form he takes, one thing stays the same. His arrival means danger, and silence is the warning. Today, Umi-bozu haunts anime and video games, but science says he's just a story. But when the sea goes quiet and fog swallows the horizon, when the water turns black as ink, Japanese sailors still remember one thing. Silence is not peace. It's a warning. Number 5, Moby Dick. Speaking of warnings that came too late, let's move on to a story that proves the ocean's most terrifying predators aren't always the ones with the biggest teeth. Moby Dick might seem like just a novel, but it's rooted in grim reality. On November 20th, 1820, the American whaling ship Essex was sailing the Pacific when a massive sperm whale rammed it with shocking force. The ship sank, leaving 20 crew members adrift in small boats with no food, no fresh water, and thousands of miles of open ocean. In the end, only 5 made it back alive after being stranded for 89 days, and they survived by resorting to cannibalism. Therefore, while Moby Dick is fiction, it's no wild fantasy. Melville drew from real stories of 19th century whalers who didn't just hunt whales, sometimes the whales fought back. Sailors told tales of furious whales that attacked ships without warning, overturning them or dragging them beneath the waves. One tale especially captured Melville's imagination, the legend of an enormous albino sperm whale that stalked the Pacific hunting whaling ships with deliberate malice. Sailors swore this whale was clever and violent, attacking ships with terrifying precision, always escaping, always surviving, always coming back. This beast earned a reputation as the terror of the seas, a whale that remembered, a whale that hunted hunters. Melville wove these brutal truths into his masterpiece, and his white whale wasn't just imagination, but a symbol of nature striking back. Number 4, Ogopogo. If you thought vengeful whales were terrifying, this creature has kept locals curious and scared for nearly a century. Deep in British Columbia, Lake Okanagan hides something people have talked about since long before cameras existed. Ogopogo is described as a dark serpent between 50 to 80 feet long, with a thick scaly body, a horse-like head, and a flexible neck that moves in smooth, undulating humps. The first official sighting was in 1926. And since then, blurry photos, shaky videos, and eyewitness stories have kept the legend alive. In the 1980s, someone offered a $1 million reward for proof, and Greenpeace argued Ogopogo should be protected like an endangered species even though no one could prove it was real. The city of Kelowna even put up a playful cartoon statue, a strange contrast to the dark serpentine monster people claim to fear. So what is Ogopogo really? Some say it's a massive fish, maybe a prehistoric relic. Scientists dismiss the sightings as waves, light tricks, or floating logs, but here's the thing. No one can prove it exists, but no one can prove it doesn't either. Every ripple on that glassy surface keeps the mystery alive. Until then, Ogopogo stays right where it thrives, somewhere between legend and reality. Number 3, the Bloop. Now let's shift to the open ocean and talk about something that isn't a creature at all, but a sound that has haunted scientists for nearly 3 decades. In 1997, the United States National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration recorded one of the loudest underwater sounds ever detected in the southern Pacific Ocean, heard over 3,000 miles away. They named it the Bloop. The creature imagined at the heart of this legend is described as over 250 feet long, far larger than any known animal, and some theories suggest it communicates through infrasound, a frequency that can induce unease or fear. The sound originated from one of the most remote regions on Earth, somewhere between Easter Island and Antarctica, at ocean depths of around 13,000 feet. Later, researchers suggested an ice quake caused the sound, but even they admitted the sound structure was unusually organic. The legend spread when people noticed the Bloop's coordinates nearly matched the fictional location of Rilaye from Lovecraft's stories, the underwater city where Cthulhu is said to sleep. In 2002 and 2005, scientists conducted follow-up missions hoping to capture the sound again, but nothing similar was ever recorded. Even stranger, several hydrophones malfunctioned during the process. Since 1997, no similar sound has been recorded again, not once. To some, it was just a strange anomaly. To others, it remains the only acoustic trace of something still lurking in the dark. Number 2, the Kraken. Moving on, we're going to talk about a legend sailors feared for over 800 years. And then, in 1853, something washed up that proved they were right to be afraid. The Kraken comes from Norse mythology, a sea monster described as massive as an island with eyes like ship windows and tentacles like harbor cranes. Fishermen swore that if the water starts to foam for no reason, you run. Because if you see the Kraken, you're already too late. It was so real to sailors that they marked it on maps with the warning, "Here be monsters." Now here's the twist. Giant squids are real, and they're almost exactly what the sailors described. The first one was filmed alive in the early 2000s, but before that, all we had was scraps of tentacles and terror-filled stories. In 1853, a huge sea creature washed up on a beach in Denmark, and it was the first time scientists got to examine one up close. It looked exactly like the Kraken from old stories, a squid, but one so massive it didn't seem possible. The largest giant squid found so far was 43 feet long, and scientists believe there could be even larger specimens hiding in the deep ocean. But here's where it gets even more interesting. In 2011, researchers found fossilized bones from ancient marine reptiles called Shonosaurus, and the bones weren't scattered randomly, they were arranged in a pattern, grouped together deliberately. Professor Mark McMenamin studied these bones and proposed a theory that sounds like science fiction. He believes a giant squid, possibly over 100 feet long, killed these reptiles and arranged their bones like trophies, the same way modern octopuses pile shells outside their dens. If he's right, that means the Kraken wasn't just a myth, It was real, and it was hunting creatures the size of school buses over 200 million years ago. So was the Kraken real? Maybe. And the old stories from sailors might not be exaggerations at all. Number 1. El Gran Maja. The last creature on this list is by far the most mysterious and terrifying. El Gran Maja is described as a colossal sea monster, something around 2,000 feet long, roughly the size of 6 football fields laid end to end. That's bigger than anything we've ever imagined could survive in the ocean. According to witness accounts, it has a massive mouth packed with hundreds of razor-sharp teeth, wide enough to swallow a whale whole, and 6 small glowing white eyes that can see through total darkness in the deepest parts of the Arctic Ocean. The earliest documented mention supposedly dates back to 1563, when a Spanish sailor named Diego Alejandro described a beast with a mouth the size of a lifeboat and a body that disappeared into the fog. The original records were mostly lost to fire, but surviving fragments inspired centuries of tales that eventually made their way onto the internet. But here's what made people start believing in modern times. A few years ago, researchers recorded mysterious underwater sounds from deep in the Arctic Ocean. Low-frequency rumbles that didn't match any known marine animal. Scientists said it was probably just ice breaking apart, but others disagreed. They heard something that sounded alive. Something calling from below in a pattern that seemed deliberate. One story involves a deep-sea expedition that supposedly lowered a camera into a trench near the Arctic Circle, and something massive passed by the lens, big enough to block out the light from above for several seconds. The footage allegedly never went public, and crew members reportedly left the expedition early and refused to return to sea. Does El Gran Maja really exist? Science says there's no proof, no bodies, no DNA, no verified footage. Yet the ocean is massive, deep, and mostly unexplored, especially the frozen regions near the Arctic, where entire ecosystems could exist, and we'd never know. Our fear of strange sounds, our terror of hidden creatures moving in endless darkness, and the fact that 95% of the ocean remains unexplored makes El Gran Maja seem disturbingly plausible. If something that large existed, it would live in the deepest trenches where pressure is so extreme our submarines can't reach. It wouldn't need to surface often, maybe once every few decades, and in that time, it could move thousands of miles undetected. Therefore, until we explore every hidden corner of the ocean, El Gran Maja remains the ocean's greatest mystery. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe.